Welcome to our first fireside chat, Find Your Mojo. I would like to start this segment by welcoming one of the founding fathers of Great Manager Institute, Mr. Prasenjit Bhattacharya. Along with Prasenjit, Along with Prasenjit, we are joined by dynamic leader Dr. Sumit Mitra, CEO of Tesco Business Services and Tesco Bangalore. Dr. Mitra is an ace strategist with acute commercial acumen and has immense experience in building and managing large global diverse teams. We're also joined by one of the winners from our list today, truly a great people manager, Ms. Bhargavi Sankara, Head of Corporate Technology at BNY Mellon. She's a seasoned technology leader who is known for her bold ideas and strong business acumen for driving results. And this panel will be interacting with the man you just met and who needs no introduction ever, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Over to you, Prasenjit.
Thank you, Maithili. Uh, we all know when we see somebody's passion inside flow out externally, it is visible to people. You know, when the artist and the art is one, we call it a state of flow. We have seen it in people. When Martin Luther King said, "I have a dream," you could sense that. When John F. Kennedy says that, "Think not what your country can do for you," you can sense that. In India, when Subhash Chandra Bose says, "Give me blood, I'll give you freedom," we know that these are people who are in their element. They have found their mojo. Now, these are iconic leaders and they are artists and many others. But how do business leaders, how do people like you and me discover our mojo? And how can we really be in that state of flow? And we have an amazing panel. We have three doctors. So Bhargavi is a PhD in computer science, and very few people know that Dr. Sumit Mitra is not a PhD. He is a physician. So he is a doctor of medicine. So Sumit runs a big empire, and the doctor of doctors, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. So Marshall, over to you to tell us a little bit more about this concept and what made you think about it and why is it applicable to everyone, not just leaders.
Well, what is MOJO? I define MOJO as that positive spirit toward what you are doing now that starts from the inside and radiates to the outside. And as you mentioned, we can see this as we journey through life, not just in the famous Martin Luther King or John Kennedy. We can see this at the hotel with the person checking in. We can see it at the restaurant with the waitress or waiter. We can see this everywhere we go. So it doesn't have to be somebody at a very high level. Now, as you mentioned, we're going through very hard times for many people right now. How do you get your mojo and how do you get it back? I think a good place to start is, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, the Bhagavad Gita. The Gita is a wonderful place to understand. Let's look at the Gita. In the Gita, we have the protagonist, Arjuna. And Arjuna basically has said, I have two choices, very bad and worse. Bad and worse choices, not good. And what do I do? And what does he learn? Some very great lessons. Number one, accept what is. What is. Accept what is. Number two, do not get fixated by results you do not control. Don't get fixated on results you do control. Focus on what you do control. You have a clear strategy and you do your best. Well, that advice from the Gita is kind of old, but I find it very, very applicable today in today's world. So I just think that's a wonderful place to start. Now, Prasenjit, mindfulness is a very big topic right now. So I've read about 400 books about Buddhism or Buddhist philosophy. I'm not a religious Buddhist, but I'm a philosophical Buddhist. And I'm now going to teach you something I learned this year about mindfulness that all of our listeners can use immediately. And you don't need to go to a seminar. You don't even have to read the 400 books. One question to ask yourself and keep in front of you at all times. Am I being the person that I want to be right now? Am I being the person I want to be right now? By the way, not just at work, at home as well. When you go home and your child is trying to talk to you and you're looking at the cell phone, are you being the person you want to be right now? When you get upset with your family members and start yelling, are you being the person you want to be right now? At work, when you're dealing with challenges, recognition, am I being the person that I want to be right now? And I highly suggest just keep that in front of you. Everywhere you go, am I being the person that I want to be right now? Now, some people are going to have to make some hard decisions. And in my 100 Coach program, I've adopted many wonderful people. One of them is Harry Kramer, former CEO of Baxter, and now one of the top business school teachers in the world. Harry was asked a challenging question. He said, someone said, you've had to make hard decisions. You've had to fire people. You've had to lay people off. How do you sleep at night? How do you sleep at night? He said, very easily. I only asked two questions. One, did I do what I thought was right? Did I do what I thought was right? And number two, did I do my best? And if the answer is, I did what I thought was right, and I did my best, he said, I can always sleep at night. That's all any of us can do. That's all any of us can do in these hard times. Just challenge yourself. Am I doing what I think is right? Am I doing my best? Make peace. Make peace. And finally, just a very quick suggestion for all of you, and that is, if you think about it, 6 questions to ask yourself every day. Question number 1, did I do my best to set clear goals today? Question number 2, did I do my best to make progress toward achieving my goals? Question number 3, did I do my best to find meaning? Rather than waiting for the world to give me meaning, did I do my best to create and find meaning myself every day? Question number 4, did I do my best to be happy? Rather than saying, did other people make me happy, did I do my best to make myself happy? And question number 5, did I do my best to build positive relationships with people? And question number 6, did I do my best to be fully engaged in what I'm doing? Every day you ask these questions. Now, President G, you mentioned John Kennedy. He made a great speech. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. As we've discussed, too much of employee engagement is what the company can do for you. And not enough employee engagement is what are you going to do for the company? Well, these 6 questions get people to focus not on what somebody else can do, because they all begin with the phrase that said, did I do my best? And that's the one thing we can never blame on another person. Did I do my best every day? So, thank you.
Thank you, Marshall. As usual, you make it very succinct, and essentially what I hear you saying is, how can I move from a passive to an active mindset? From
Exactly.
The world influences me, and what can I do, to how can I co-create the reality which is in my hands and accept which I can't change. I'll come to both the panelists, and for the members who are here, the delegates who are here, you can also post your questions in the question panel. We'll probably have time for only a couple of them. First, coming to you, Sumit.
One request. As long as we have no questions about Donald Trump, I'm happy.
Well, damn, there goes my question. So, Sumit, how have you experienced MOJO and this state of flow? And I know you keep talking about energy. Give us some of your experience.
Sure. Thanks, Prasenjit, and good evening, everybody. MOJO for me is my personal vision statement. I call it PVS. It's almost like my GPS that takes me on a journey to achieve my purpose, my fulfillment, my passion. MOJO for me, my purpose in life is about to create an epic life for me and help me with that journey. So what is my purpose? You heard Prasenjit talk about me studying medicine and completing 5 years of medicine and choosing not to be a doctor and coming to corporate life. You almost find yourself lost. You think, okay, why am I here? Why am I changing from medicine to something else? So it took me a while, but I understood what my purpose of life is. Why am I here? And that purpose was all around whoever I touch. It doesn't matter whether I'm a medical doctor or a leader or a business professional. Anybody who comes across with me, works with me, how can I make their life 5% better than what it is now? That's how I see it. That's my purpose in life. Now, I promise you, it's not easy to find your purpose. It took me a lot of thought, soul searching. But I promise you, when you find your purpose, you will never work a single day in your life because you're living your dream, you're living your purpose. Uh, People rarely find their purpose. You're not a Steve Jobs or, Obama or a Gandhi or Mother Teresa. So people go on soul searching in terms of going up in the hills or meditating and trying to look for it. My advice on that is you don't have to have a bigger purpose. I found mine. That doesn't mean you will find yours. Think about every day as a purposeful day. What is the objective for the day? And deal with those objectives on a daily basis. And that's your purpose. So I'll finish off with a saying from Viktor Franklin. The one who has a why to live can survive almost anyhow. Thank you.
Wow, that was amazing, and thank you so much, Sumit. So, Bhargavi, and you are a PhD in computer science. So, what does artificial intelligence and machine learning and everything else tells us about MOJO? What's been your experience of MOJO, Bhargavi?
So first of all, it's so hard to follow Dr. Goldsmith and Prasanji. So I'll try my best. I want to just share a simple thing. I started from a very small village of 200 people. We didn't have schools, we didn't have buses, we didn't have roads. So I grew up with my maternal grandparents till 6th grade. I appeared for scholarship exams. I got selected into top 20 boarding schools. I went to a northern part of India, did my schooling there, and I went through a big transformation during that phase, where I came from entirely Telugu medium school to learning English, Hindi, Sanskrit, and also, getting my distinction. So I think there are two things that I want to call out. One is I really like Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, not just because I'm listening to him today. I was so influenced by him when I heard him firsthand in Redmond. I read his book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. But the point is, there are two things to think about. One is to have that North Star that Sumit was talking about, but the other is to lead a purposeful life every single day. And like Sumit himself called out, it's not always necessary that you will find your North Star or purpose on day one. So it's important to kind of live every single day with peace and joy and happiness. And in that path, you will automatically probably get there into kind of realizing. So I just want to share one thing. So when I was growing up, I missed not being in a family with parents and being loved, and always felt like an underdog, undervalued. And so the only thing I ever craved for when I was a child was to have a husband and two boys. I never wanted to work. I just wanted to have a family. And this all changed, through a freak incident where I had to have a financial independence for reasons that I can't explain to cut short time. And so I started working. The time I realized that what I wanted to do, I think Dr. Goldsmith was asking, you should kind of think about, what can you do, and, all those things, right? So I remember actually I was watching a movie in Seattle, which was about this girl with terminal illness. And I introspected at that time. If I was to know within a month I'm going to die, what would be my priorities? I think that's what Goldsmith was asking, treat every moment, people surrounding you, the way you would want to treat in that moment, and not thinking of past, present, and anything else. So that made me realize, what would be my priorities if I knew I didn't have all this lengthy life and my life was going to end in a month. So as I introspected, I realized I love engineering. I love people. And I love people leadership. I didn't know until that time that this is what I really wanted to do in life. So it was almost like after 20 years of career, I bumped into my vision. And so the point though is I also did meditation. And meditation, I'll explain in scientific terms, it's like if your life was sine or cosine curve, it reduces your amplitude of how high or how low you feel, and frequency of how often do you experience. So you're almost always in a state of balance with your whole self. And so I also read one last article I'll talk about, which is Harvard Business Review on manage your energy and not your time. And it talks about 4 energy wells: body, mind, emotion, spirit. And I read this about 10 years back. And I've been practicing it since then. I'm a marathon runner. I loved Bhagavad Gita when I was a kid. I still read Bhagavad Gita, and I'm a Hindu by birth, and I practice religion every day. I pray every day. And it doesn't matter whether you pray to a being called God, or whether you pray to the universe, or whether you pray to something bigger than you, or the whole of the world. But the point is, you need to connect with something bigger than you. And then the last thing is this whole aspect of serving something beyond you. I have sponsored 10 girl children. 3 of them finished engineering. They're all having their own lives now. I feel so happy. I have like this extended family beyond my 2 boys. You know, when you serve something beyond yourself, that gives you a sense of purpose. So I don't know what my grander vision is, but I just realized that as long as I'm happy and I can spread that happiness in every interaction that I have, make people valued, that's all that matters to me. And I love engineering leadership. One last thing I'll say, one time I was having a conversation with the exec coach as I built a bot and I was about to introduce it. And I was getting frustrated with my peer who was always giving me tough time, and she didn't understand engineering. And I was telling her why it would be beneficial to introduce the bot, and I was getting vexed up, and I was sharing this conversation with the exec coach, and he told me, what good is your machine learning if you can't take people along with you? And that made me step back, and I built relationship with her, and it worked great. So I think every relationship can be nurtured to be a positive relationship. And that gives you peace more than any other result. So I truly believe in that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, Bhargavi, as you say, I learn a lot of things you are saying. It's important to figure out, you know, what do you really enjoy doing? In your case, technology and people leadership. It's also important to figure out what are you really good at. And obviously you are good at because of the, you know, whether it's Microsoft or MX or your current organization, they all value your services. And I think the third and the most important thing that both of you are saying, the PVS of helping others realize their potential that Sumit talks about, is how is my goal beyond myself? Whether it is educating those 8 people, and that at least personally for me, that gives me so much energy. At Great Manager Institute, we say that every person must get an opportunity to work with a great people manager, and any manager should be able to achieve business performance by building trusting relationships. And I think this is, you know, you wake up in the morning and you feel like going to work when you have something like this. Marshall, in current context, you know, we have found a few CEOs have also seemingly lost their mojo. And some of them have fallen into some of the pitfalls that you describe in your book, which is, for example, waiting for facts to change, or sunk costs. I have already invested in infrastructure. Let me wait, and it should be normal again. What's your think of the situation, and what's your advice to CEOs today?
I always recommend that every CEO I coach asks for feedback. And they really feed forward, as I like even better today. Ask for ideas for the future. Always pick what is your biggest challenge and ask, how can I be a better? How can I be a better? How can I be a better listener? How can I be a better friend? How can I be a better husband, wife? How can I be a better father? How can I be a better son, daughter? Just as was mentioned by our 2 other wonderful speakers, is really don't just focus on yourself. Look at that bigger goal and ask everyone around you, how can I be a better? And rather than looking in the mirror and feeling sorry for yourself, if we really focus on how we can help others, and the great leaders that I've coached, one thing I'm very proud of in my book, MOJO, or my book, Triggers, 27 CEOs endorsed the book. 30 years ago, no CEO would admit to having a coach and would have been ashamed, embarrassed. Well, today, all of these people say, how can I be better? How can I be better? My friend Hubert Joly, CEO of Best Buy, the biggest turnaround in America the last 2 years. Every employee in that company does what he does. He stands up and says, I am the CEO of this company. I want to get better. Here's what I want to improve. Please help me. Every employee does this, which I love. It demonstrates courage, the courage to look in the mirror. It demonstrates humility, the humility to admit you can improve, and discipline to keep at it, that day-to-day hard work. Courage, humility, discipline. Thank you.
Wow. And tell us, Marshall, a little bit more about the daily discipline that is required. And I'm getting a sense of it because for the last 6 months, I'm doing 10,000 steps every day. And there's not been a single day that, that I have not done it. But the funny part is, it's not the 10,000 steps. I have to sleep on time. I have to eat well. I have to structure my time. I have to figure out my Saturday night outs. And it is actually making a huge difference to the rest of my life. How does daily discipline work, Marshall?
Well, I have a process called the daily question process. And I simply write down what's most important in my life. And one of mine as well is 10,000 steps. But it could be how many minutes did I write, or my family, was I nice to my wife? Just all kinds of questions. And then every day, every question is answered with a yes, a no, or a number. And I fill it out every day. And at the end of the week, I get a report card. Now, I'm going to warn everyone in advance, that report card at the end of the week is not as pretty as the corporate values plaque you see on the wall. And by the way, in my kind introduction, you left something out. I have an incredible ability to do something stupid every day. Every day I do dumb things. Well, every day you get to look at it. Now, I've had someone call me on the phone every day for over 20 years to make sure I do this. Why? Why do I have someone call me? Somebody said, don't you know the theory about how to change? I wrote the theory. That's why I have someone call me. My name is Marshall Goldsmith. I got ranked #1 leadership thinker and coach in the whole world. I have someone call me on the phone every day just to listen to me read questions I wrote and provide answers I wrote every day. Why do I do this? My name is Marshall Goldsmith. I'm too cowardly to do this stuff by myself. I'm too undisciplined. I need help. I need help. And it's okay. It's okay. We all need help. And it's okay. Get over that macho, I can do everything on my own business. We all need help. How about Dr. Samit? You need a little help over there?
Yes.
All the time. All the time. Every second.
Every second.
I'm going to come back to you, Marshall, at the end, because there are a couple of questions which have a common theme. My organization is not contributing, is actually contributing to carbon emissions. I'm in this situation, my boss is like that. How can I get my mojo? But before that, Sumit, as a leader, you're already a CEO, but there are so many of us who are in this group who are managers. What would be your advice if somebody is not a leader yet, but wants to be a successful leader with Mojo? What will be the steps that person can take?
Yeah, I think sometimes even as leaders, you lose your mojo. And the things why that happens is because it's the experience, your day-to-day experience that you face in life, right? That weighs you down. And, these are sometimes good, sometimes bad experience, but it weighs you down. So one needs to almost extract life lessons out of those experiences and almost leave behind emotions like bitterness, tears, worry, thoughts, and move them out and use those experiences as a learning journey. And that helps you to build the purpose even better because you're learning from your mistakes all the time. And almost creating a bigger purpose in the organization. I'll give you an example about Tesco. I have 4,500 colleagues in Tesco working in India who have, and probably 90% of them haven't seen a Tesco office or a Tesco store in the UK or Europe. Now, during pandemic times when people are working from home and managing their work-life balance, whereas, how do they serve those nations that they can't relate to? The important thing was, as a leader, to ensure you create a sense of purpose. Purpose was that you're feeding nations. On a time of crisis, we will probably face this once in a lifetime. And in this lifetime, wouldn't it be great to connect to a purpose which says we are feeding vulnerable people, we are feeding nations. And that really helped us all our colleagues, the 4,500 of them, geared towards a common goal and energize the whole workforce for a common goal, which is feeding nations. And we are actually privileged being a food retailer that our sector is doing pretty well. And that privilege comes with a lot of responsibility. And the responsibility is to feed the nation.
I think that's a very good, apt reply. Bhargavi, there is a question for you, and I can't. Let me figure out. Uh, yeah, I think it's a lady who is asking the question, and the question is: have you ever felt in your journey that your sort of career and growth is about to end? Where you did you feel down? Were there significant disappointments, and what helped you to get out of it?
That's a good question. So I will answer that, but I also wanted to add one more thing. So I'll make it as quick as I can. So I worked, I shouldn't be mentioning organization names and bosses' names. I was working in one of my previous organizations, and I had spent a long time there and was very well recognized. And there was a leadership change, and I just had to report to this jerk, total jerk, and it was very difficult. And I wanted to leave, and Hindu or whatever. I thought, if I have a bad karma, I should let it go here. I should face it. And Marshall Goldsmith spoke about courageousness. I've always believed in courage. And so I was like, and also acceptance. I love that part about Goldsmith, what he said. I think it's important to accept some things that you cannot change. But I still wanted to kind of, give it a choice and give it a try. But there was a point where I had to make that decision. And so I looked around and I found a few opportunities. And the next opportunity was actually a little step back. Like I was leading this really large organization, and I went to a role which was a little step back in terms of the impact I was able to create. But at that time, it was important for me to let go of this organization because I was getting tired. It was almost a year I was trying to do this. And I think I want to add that at that point, I was also a little more immature. At this age, I would have dealt with it a little differently. But at that time, I was making it too personal, too emotional. Anyway, so I left and I went on to another organization. And I learned a lot in this organization. So Dr. Goldsmith also spoke about humility. Because my career was like smooth swing till that point, I didn't really have a need to find humility. I was suddenly, I was this sharp person. I was always an A student. And all of a sudden, this setback, and then going to one step lower role actually made me feel humbled that it's okay. I mean, life goes on. I have to learn and I have to be better now than all these other people that have been there in this organization for this long. And I started learning a lot. And I think along with humility comes a very important virtue everybody can inculcate, is to be okay to be vulnerable. And if you open up, people come to help you. I think Dr. Goldsmith also spoke about this aspect of, I'm not perfect, I need help. So, it's important to be okay to be vulnerable. That's also courageousness. And so in that aspect, I grew stronger. And in fact, actually from that point onwards, actually within 3 years, my salary more than tripled, my role, my impact, everything grew through various phenomenons. But the important thing is there was a momentary step back, and I was not comfortable in that moment. And I think you were asking the question about MOJO. When does that change? You're in a smooth journey, and you have the context, you have the environment, you have the people supporting you, you have a brand equity in the organization. All of a sudden, one of those parameters change, or multiple of those parameters change, and you find yourself a little discomforted. And then you have to find your MOJO again. And to find that MOJO, there are 3 important things, especially as a technology leader. One is intellectual humility. I mean, you can have opinions. The most important thing is all of us got this far because we to come to ideas and solutions. But it's important to be able to have that empathetic listening ears to kind of go deeper and be intellectually humble. The second thing is continuous learning. There's never an end. I mean, the person who's most knowledgeable is the person who knows that there is a lot more to still learn. And so especially with technology, we haven't invented technology that we're going to use a year from now.
Right.
So important aspect is to have that continuous daily discipline of learning. And I think that's where I want to end. I'm a very boringly disciplined person. I wasn't this way when I began my life, but now I'm pretty predictably boring. I wake up every day, do my 1 hour run, do a half an hour prayer, and like everything I do in my life is very structured. Every day I read a book. Just we use plural site internally within our bank for learning, and I tested myself in 15 role IQs. I mean, today I'm good at business analyst, strategy planning, developer, information architect, secure development, you name it, right? So I have gotten this breadth and depth because of continuous learning. I think it's extremely important for women to never stop that appetite for learning and never ever take it too emotional. It's okay once in a while, but I think meditation really helps you to get stronger. And all of this discipline that you inculcate. Also surround yourself with the people who are going to raise you up, lift you up. Those are some of the important parameters.
Thank you so much, Bhargavi, and that's brilliant. And I'll give the last words to Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. And someone once told me that the difference between successful people and those who are not as successful is that successful people make a habit of doing things that others don't like to do. Right. Get up at 5 in the morning, go for your 10,000 steps, read one book. And what happens is I read a book, not complete book, but at least part of a book every night. But tonight, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing something else after this. I'll give an excuse and I'll say, oh, it's a late night. Let me not read tonight. So tonight, let us say Bhargavi is there and I am here somewhere. But Bhargavi is going to go back and read a book. And I am not. So tomorrow morning, she's going to be here and I am going to be still there, right? And I think that is the secret. Marshall, closing words from your side. Of course, we spoke about women and you are an expert on why women rise or do not rise. And also there is some people who are talking about what can I do? And there is somebody who says, look at bad boy millionaires or billionaires. We have some people who are seemingly having a lot of fun, but cheating the government and cheating on tax and doing all kinds of things. So therefore, quick summary of, from your side. Last words on this topic.
Well, my last words are you have to look in the mirror. And there's always somebody who's very successful that did the wrong thing. So what? Is that who you want to be? Is that who you want to be? You need to look in that mirror and say, am I being the person that I want to be right now? And it doesn't matter how much money you make or how much status you have. If you can't look in the mirror and be happy with the person you see, none of that stuff matters at all. All of that stuff is irrelevant. And you need to look in the mirror and say, am I happy with that person? And in my job, I don't tell people who they want to be. I try to help people be who they want to be. And that's up to each individual. I don't want to be that person. I don't think most people want to be that person. So look in the mirror and ask yourself, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What somebody else does is their problem. Don't waste your life focusing on somebody did bad things and is rich. So what? That's not your problem. You look in the mirror and say, who do I want to be? Is this the person I want to be? And at the end of our life, there's only one person you need to impress. When you're an old person looking at death, look in the mirror. Look in the mirror, and if that person says you did the right thing, you did the right thing. If that person says you did the wrong thing, nothing else matters.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think sometimes we get lost in what we think is success and we lose happiness in the process. And I think the idea is that how can we be happy and make an impact and be successful. I think with this, we are going to end this panel discussion.